Okay, so we're looking at buying a van at the government auction, and we were kind of you did up a nice little kind of fair market. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts overall about the van?
we put together a full breakdown of that 2017 Dodge Grand Caravan GT from GCSurplus. Covered the condition, known issues, auction limitations, potential Turo income, and a full cost revenue worksheet. If you're going live on YouTube, I can help you shape that into a clean talking flow, like a walkthrough or behind the scenes decision making episode. Want a quick live outline you can follow during the stream?
Well, I thought what we'd do is just kind of do a little work session and just kind of get an idea of what we're going to talk about and kind of just go over this report that you provided along with the email that we put together. So I sent you a copy of the listing and I also sent you a copy of the CARFAX report. So what were your thoughts on that?
Perfect. That sounds like a great working session. Based on the listing and the Carfax, here's a quick summary of what stood out most. From the listing, it's a 2017 Dodge Grand Caravan GT, 149,790 kilometers, current bid at 8,635 CAD. It's got a history of crown forfeiture, which is clean in terms of ownership, but it's a red flag in terms of how long it may have sat without use or maintenance. Major concerns include electrical issues, dash lights flicker, needs a battery, disconnected wire, a potential airbag issue, and surface rust on the brakes. Cosmetic stuff too, scratches, dents, a missing spare tire, but those are secondary. From the Carfax, shows normal branding in British Columbia. There's a noted accident in February 2024, marked as auction announced as accident repair, but no ICBC claim or repair detail. So the full extent of the damage and quality of repair is unknown. No liens shown, but we still asked in our email for confirmation that it's free and clear for Ontario registration. So for the live stream, you could start by reviewing these things in a casual way. Here's the van we're looking at. Let's talk about the condition and the repair concerns. Here's what's missing from the Carfax and why that matters. If we were to bid, what would our actual cost be?
Okay, so
Then maybe bring up the worksheet you and I built and walk viewers through the logic of buying it for Turo. Want to pull all that into a live session outline you can use while talking on camera?
no, let's break away from doing this as a thinking session. We're just gonna have a straight discussion first, and then we'll do a breakdown later on.
As a
How's that sound?
formal review, and just make it more like a casual conversation, right?
Yeah, that
Almost like a thinking out loud session where you're talking through your process and letting people peek behind the curtain.
yeah, I think that's the general
That totally
idea.
works. You could start by saying something like, all right, today's just a working session. I've been looking at this van on auction, thinking about picking it up for Turo. Nothing's set in stone.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the van we were looking at earlier. So you could tell me a little bit about the Carfax report. That would be great.
Absolutely. So the Carfax report on the 2017 Dodge Grand Caravan GT showed a few key things. First, it's been registered in British Columbia its whole life, and it carries a normal branding, which is good. It's not salvage, rebuilt, or non-repairable. Next, there was a damage record from February 2024, flagged as auction announced as accident repair. But here's the thing, because it's from BC, the Carfax doesn't include details from ICBC, which is their insurance provider. So we don't know the actual repair cost or what was fixed. That's a blind spot. There's no indication of theft, no open recalls, and no US history. So those are positives. It also shows consistent service history, mostly at Jiffy Lube and a couple of dealerships, up until around 145,000 kilometers, which was right before the auction transfer. So big picture, it looks fairly clean on paper, but the missing ICBC info and vague repair note leave some questions. That's why we requested clarification from the auction house about any active liens or registration problems. Want me to recap that as a quick voiceover style summary you can say on video?
No, we're good on that. You did an excellent job. Appreciate that. Now, would it have issues registering that vehicle in Ontario? And what would be the basic steps for that?
Thanks, Keith, and great question. So here's how it works when bringing a vehicle from British Columbia into Ontario. Can it be registered in Ontario? Yes, as long as the vehicle has normal branding, which this one does, no unresolved liens, we've asked for that confirmation, and it passes a safety standards certificate inspection in Ontario. So you're good to register it, but there are a few steps to follow. Steps to register a BC vehicle in Ontario. 1. Obtain the original vehicle documents from the auction. You'll need the bill of sale, BC registration, and confirmation of transfer from the Crown. 2. Get a safety standard certificate, SSC. Have a licensed Ontario mechanic inspect the vehicle. Any issues, like that airbag or electrical glitch, must be resolved before they'll issue the certificate. 3. Get a drive clean emissions test, if applicable. Most newer vehicles are exempt, but if required, it must pass before registration. 4. Show proof of insurance, just like any other Ontario vehicle. 5. Bring it all to Service Ontario. You'll need to go in person with the out-of-province documents, safety certificate, proof of insurance, valid ID, completed UVP, used vehicle info package. 6. Pay the HST on purchase price, usually based on what's on the bill of sale or the wholesale value. 7. Receive Ontario plates and ownership. Let me know if you want a printable checklist or a visual graphic of this process to share in your video.
No, we're okay. I've got that checklist from before, so we're fine from that standpoint. Now, we looked at the market value in comparison. So if I got a bid on that vehicle, which I haven't yet, what would you recommend?
Right? So if you were to place a bid, here's how you'd want to think about it based on everything we've reviewed. The current bid is $8,635, and we estimated your total all-in cost after repairs, transport, and certification would be around $11,000 to $11,300. Given the market value on AutoTrader and VMR Canada for a clean Grand Caravan GT with similar mileage is around $14,000 to $18,000, you've got some margin to work with, but only if the repairs stay predictable. So if you haven't bid yet, the ideal range to stay under would be around $7,800 to $8,000, just to keep your flexibility and protect your ROI if anything more serious pops up during safety or inspection. And from a business angle, especially for Turo, you'd still be in a good position if it rents out 15 days a month at around $75 per day, bringing in over $1,100 monthly gross. So even conservatively, you'd see return within the first year. Do you want to talk through your ideal walkaway point? Or if it's worth setting up a snipe bid strategy close to closing?
Normally, I like to go.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
So normally, I like to do it on the day of the auction, so I don't put in a bid until that timeline, and that's for tomorrow. So I haven't given that a lot of thought yet. But what you're telling me essentially is that we're borderline on whether or not that's profitable if we go over the $9,000 mark.
Exactly, Keith. That's the sweet spot.
Now I'm going to
Once your bid creeps over $9,000, especially with that $300 auction fee, transport, and repairs, you're pushing right up against the top end of what makes it profitable, at least for a first-year return. And since we're dealing with unknowns like electrical and airbag issues, there's always a chance that 11 care budget could grow fast. So yeah, keeping your bid at $7,800 to $8,000 lets you protect your margin, especially if you're doing the reconditioning yourself. Waiting until auction day to place your bid is smart too. It avoids unnecessary inflation and lets you see if the bidding stays cool or gets competitive. Want to mock up a bid ceiling plan now, or just wait until tomorrow to feel it out?
We're going to wait till tomorrow. We're going to watch the auction, and then we'll see where the numbers are going from that standpoint. Now, we talked briefly a little bit about, we did kind of a good or
How
bad.
the vehicle fits into your overall Turo strategy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good angle to bring up. We touched on how the Grand Caravan GT works well in the rental space, especially for families, groups, or road trips. The sliding doors, DVD system, heated seats, it's a practical and comfortable option. And because you already know your way around maintenance, you're not as exposed to shop rates if something needs fixing. So, from a business perspective, this van could really help you diversify your fleet, especially if you're already running smaller sedans or SUVs. It fills a different need, and you could even consider bundling extras like child seats or long trip packages to boost bookings. Did you want to explore that rental positioning a bit more, or focus next on how you'd present it in a Turo listing if you win the bid?
Well, you made an estimate there that it's a fairly common renter, so it shouldn't be that big of an issue getting it booked out.
Yeah, exactly. The Dodge Grand Caravan, especially the GT trim, is a really common and high demand rental on platforms like Turo. Here's why it does well. It seats 7, which makes it great for families, especially in the summer and around holidays. It's budget friendly compared to SUVs or luxury vans. So people looking for space without paying a premium are drawn to it. It has features like power sliding doors, leather seats, and rear entertainment, which add value for renters. And because it's not flashy, it appeals to practical renters, people moving between cities, families visiting, or even people whose cars are in the shop. In Southern Ontario, listings for Grand Caravans often get consistent bookings, even more so if you offer things like airport drop off or long term discounts. So if you grab it under the right conditions and clean it up, it's got a solid chance of earning steady income, especially in the spring summer run. Would you want to go over how to set your daily rate or how to optimize that listing to stand out on Turo?
Well, we're probably going to do that if we purchase the van tomorrow at auction. But we also talked about the upside and the downside. Uh, can you give me a little recap on that?
Definitely. Here's a quick recap of the upside and downside we discussed. Perfect for your video or podcast wrap up, too. Upside, below market auction price. If you land the van under $8,000, you're well below retail pricing for similar models in Ontario. Strong rental appeal. The Grand Caravan GT is a proven performer on Turo, especially for families and groups needing a practical 7-seater. Your skill set saves money. You can do most of the repairs and cleanup yourself, cutting down labor costs. Versatile asset. Even if you don't use it for Turo long term, it has resale value or can be used in other business projects. Great content. Documenting the process adds value to your YouTube channel and podcast. It's relatable, educational, and engaging. Downside, electrical and airbag issues could be minor, could be costly. The uncertainty makes this a bit of a gamble without a full inspection. Out of province registration. You'll need a proper Ontario safety cert and have to confirm there are no hidden liens from BC. Auction rules are strict. No returns, no test drive, no hoist inspection. What you buy is what you get. Total cost could balloon. If you bid over $9,000 and repairs go beyond estimates, your ROI could shrink fast. Not guaranteed to pass safety right away. That airbag cover and wiring could hold things up if they fail inspection. In short, this van has potential, but the numbers only work if the price stays low and the repairs stay manageable. If either of those goes off track, the profit window is. Still planning to hold steady and watch the bids tomorrow?
I am. Now, we also talked about the first year ROI and the cost recovery. What was that number?
Yep, we ran the numbers earlier based on your estimated costs and rental potential. Here's the quick breakdown. Target total investment, all in, about 11,200 CAD. Projected average daily rental rate, $75 day. Estimated booking volume, 15 days per month. Monthly gross income, $125. Annual gross income, $13,500. So your first year ROI, meaning profit after covering all startup costs, comes out to around 2,230 CAD. And that's based on pretty realistic numbers. Moderate bookings, no huge price hikes, and you handling most of the reconditioning work yourself. If bookings go higher or rates spike during peak season, your return could be even better. Want me to prep that as a visual for your live stream or a slide style breakdown you can use on screen?
No, we're okay there. I think that's pretty manageable. Now, when we're looking at the ROI at $2,230, we haven't incorporated the insurance cost, fuel costs, or overhead costs on a daily. So based on that, we would probably have to go to the 18th month to actually see this vehicle get paid off. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. And you're exactly right to think that way. That 2,230 ROI we calculated was gross profit. It didn't include things like commercial or Turo insurance, fuel used during delivery or repositioning, maintenance wear and tear, tires, oil, brakes over time, Turo's host fees, any overhead tied to your business operation. Once you factor in those recurring costs, your true net ROI is likely closer to break even around month 12, with actual profit showing around month 16 to 18, depending on how hard it books. But again, the upside here is that once it's paid off, everything after that is clean margin, especially if you keep the van well maintained and in the rotation for 2 to 3 years. Would you like to work out a quick 18-month cash flow plan later to show how that plays out over time?
We can do that later, again, if we do get the van at auction. Now, would you say this is a high risk investment, or would you say it's pretty manageable?
Based on everything we've looked at, I'd call this a moderate risk, manageable investment, but only if you stick to your budget and do the repairs yourself. Here's why. The risk is mainly in the unknowns, electrical airbag, and possible inspection surprises. But you've already accounted for that in your budgeting and built in a cushion by keeping your bid target under 8,000. You're also mechanically experienced, so you're not paying out for basic reconditioning, which is a huge advantage. And the vehicle itself, despite the minor issues, is a proven platform for Turo and resale, especially in Ontario. So if the auction stays within reach and nothing big shows up after you get it home, this could be a smart move with a strong long-term upside. If it jumps over $9K though, risk tips higher real quick. Feel good about how it's shaping up so far?
I do now. In the event that it doesn't work out with Turo, I can always resell the van. I wouldn't be able to recoup the taxes, but I could probably retail out of the van and wash out without much of an additional cost. That's my thoughts.
Exactly. And that's a smart way to look at it. Even if Turo doesn't pan out, the resale market for a Grand Caravan GT is strong enough that you could exit the deal without a major loss, especially if you keep the total reconditioning reasonable. You're right about the HST, you won't get that back, but with the van cleaned up, safety certified, and maybe even detailed, you could likely list it privately in the $13K to $15K range and get most of your investment back. So yeah, you've built in a backup plan, which takes the edge off the risk. Whether it becomes a revenue generating unit or just a short-term flip, you've got options. And that's what makes this a solid, calculated move. You ready to wrap this into your final thoughts for the video, or still want to explore a few angles?
Well, what would be your final thoughts for the video?
Here's a clean wrap-up you can use as your final thoughts for the video or podcast. Keeps it conversational, but thoughtful. So after walking through everything, from the auction listing, CARFAX, and repair concerns, to the cost breakdown and Turo rental strategy, I'd say this van sits right on that line between smart opportunity and calculated risk. If I can pick it up below that $8,000 mark, do the reconditioning myself, and get it listed in time for peak rental season, there's real potential here. But I'm not walking into it blindly. There are red flags, electrical quirks, an airbag concern, and that out-of-province paperwork. So it's not for everyone. Even if the Turo side doesn't work out, I've still got a decent exit plan through resale. Worst case, I clean it up, safety it, and sell it privately, probably wash out of the deal with minimal loss. So I'm going to keep a close eye on the auction tomorrow, hold my bid until the last moment, and stick to my ceiling. It's about staying disciplined because once you chase a number, that's when the risk takes over. Thanks for joining me as I think this through. Whether I win it or not, I hope this gave you a little insight into how I make these decisions behind the scenes. Want me to help format that into your YouTube description too? Or are you just going to go with it as a spoken sign off?
No, if you could do a YouTube description, that would be great, along with a title. Something with really good SEO would be spectacular. I greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely. Here's a YouTube title and description crafted for strong SEO, viewer engagement, and discoverability. YouTube title: Buying a Van at Government Auction for Turo. Full breakdown, ROI, and real risk. 2017 Dodge Grand Caravan GT.
So it kind of gives you an idea, essentially, what I go through for the process of purchasing a vehicle. So I like to use Chat GTP as a reference because a lot of times uh, the steps that I would normally do, I may miss them. Whereas this time I'm looking at a van that's available through government auction. It's in Ottawa. It's open to the public, so it's not a dealer restricted auction. Now, the dilemma with that is it's not really open to the public. So, in other words, you can't just go in and have a run around the block with it, make sure everything is fine and dandy. They don't allow that. The other one is that it's kind of a buy here, that's what you get. That's it. There's a big risk involved with it. Now, this is a Crown seized vehicle, so there could be a host of reasons as to why it is there. And being an out of province vehicle also puts up a lot of little red flags as well. So there's a hurdle there that I have to go through in order to get it registered in Ontario. This van may take me up to 90 days to go through the process. Now, there's some notable items that they've put on there, like for instance, the airbag at the front looks like it doesn't look like it's been deployed. That's not the issue there. It's out of place in the dashboard. So it looks like someone has opened up the dash to look around on the inside, and they tried to reassemble it poorly. They've also left a couple of the wire connectors underneath the hood tampered with. So it looks like someone's actually tried to put either a GPS system in or some odd, strange option that they just literally ripped out in haste. So again, it's one of those things that you look at and you think, okay, it could be a pretty straightforward, easy repair from that standpoint. Now, the cosmetics of the vehicle, they give you a couple shots, and they're okay, but they're like any other automotive listing. So you have to kind of go through those and kind of zoom in and check for rust and corrosion. They make a couple little notes and they kind of give you the drivability notes as well. This one, because it's been sitting, I think, in storage for 6 months, maybe more. In other words, the time it was seized by the Crown, it'll sit. So it could be up to a year. Some of them are up to 3 years. So of course the battery is going to be dead, and there could be a fouled fuel. So in other words, there's a host of things just from sitting in one position can be a problem with the vehicle, and that's why we have a multitude of warning lights that are coming on. They could be a simple little item where fill it up, change the battery, take care of some of the loose wiring, drive it, might just resolve itself. Plug it into an OB2 code reader, see what comes up afterwards. But again, it's going to have all those codes just from sitting. So this was just kind of an impromptu, quick little video I thought I'd put together, kind of the process or kind of behind the scenes on preparing up my podcast, number one. Also, the idea of what I would normally do when it comes to purchasing. And I do this with every vehicle. So I'll do a CARFAX report. I'll run down to the MTO. The MTO is $20. And just to confirm, especially if it's out of province, the MTO couldn't confirm this vehicle. The VIN is not registered in Ontario, even though the vehicle has landed. And I was kind of hoping that the auction had registered it. So it may have been part of the paperwork completed. So in other words, if they had landed the vehicle and registered it as part of their claim process, then it would be a Ontario ownership with no plate, right? So it would have a couple struggling points there. It would still need an inspection, and I wouldn't be able to drive it. Whereas as it sits now, I would have to get the vehicle towed. So it's just the nature of it. I'll get it towed to the local shop and go through the process. It means I'm going to pay retail on the inspection. It means I'm probably going to pay retail on addressing a couple of those little components because I'm not in Ottawa. So that becomes an issue. Now I'm in Atwood, so it means I would hop on the train or I'd hop on the plane, go down there, grab a cab, bring it back, right? I could get it shipped here, but the shipping cost negates that. We're into the thousands of dollars for that pretty easily. To rent a U-Haul, you can get one of those little items to attach your vehicle to and strap it to the back of an Outlander. Again, you're on the 400 series highways. You're in a rental lift. Not a great idea. A multitude of issues could come up with that one. Most of them could cost you lots of money. So you're better off flying in and driving it out. So that's my thoughts on this one. Again, I just thought I'd share the process. There's a lot of hurdles to go through if you're going to buy a vehicle through an auction in Canada. It's one of those things that if you're going to do it yourself, and you'll see in the States where it seems to be like, oh, go to Copar. It's like really simple. It's not the same way here. We have some pretty heavy regulations to go through. You're limited to public auctions. The public auctions, like for instance, the government one here, is usually in Ottawa. There's one in North York as well, or they're going to be a vehicle that's situated in a small town. So in other words, they run them all through this particular group, and they may have everything there as far as documentation is concerned, which becomes a hurdle because you've got to get the documentation from Ottawa, and the vehicle might be parked in Timmins. So you can see that could be logistically a runaround, which is why dealers don't typically deal with government auctions. Some fleet companies do, but most dealers don't. And that's the main reason is the timeline. Like this one here could take me, again, 3 months to put on the road. And if I were a car dealer, I'd be going, well, I've got that money sitting. I could have turned that over 2 or 3 times. Whereas this one's going to just eat up time and space, right? So for me, that's not a big deal because I'm a small little guy. I've got one parking spot. Fine, I can take that, no problem. I can run it to the storage facility while I'm waiting for paperwork to come through. And I can also run it around and make sure that it needs a spare tire. It's probably going to need an oil change. It's probably going to need a few other little items because that's just the nature of what happens with the vehicle. But that kind of gives you a little run through. And I do apologize. I didn't do a real good prompt at the beginning on what we're doing. Again, I kind of just did this on the fly, and we're coming up to about 30 minutes, which is where I like to leave these kind of impromptu live studio type things. There's no editing, there's no scripting. It's just me having a conversation. I thought I'd start incorporating some of my Chat GTP interaction so you can get an idea of what it's capable of doing. It has in the past, and it doesn't do that now, which is strange. But the 0.3 version, I'm in like 0.5 and 0.4 and change. It won't do the shopping for me, whereas it actually shopped for my Jag. So it found it and said, hey, this came up, and it was in. I gave a list of stuff that I was looking for, and it did the search and the criteria, and did the initial email out, the whole bit. For some strange reason, the newer versions don't do that. So I think there's probably a conflict there. Maybe it wasn't acting well with Auto Trader, or it wasn't acting well with Kijiji. I bought my Jag off of Kijiji. So again, I thought it was helpful because I literally said, this is my criteria. This is what I want. And it did a search. And as soon as something came up, it said, hey, here you go, from that standpoint. But again, I can't seem to make it do that now. So it's one of those things where if only it did, because I could just say, okay, go find me this. These are the criteria. This is the price point. Make it within the market range, as far as where I'm located. And we could go from there. So I'll leave a link down below, and maybe I'll do a screen capture as well. Unfortunately, I'm not set up technology-wise to do that yet. We're still in the kind of that early stages of trying to just figure out the microphone, or this is a brand new to me iMac, which I bought off the government auction, right? So again, we're just kind of building up slowly, and at some point we will get to the point where we will have really good content as a podcast. And I do like doing these little live videos, even though they're very basic. I think it's a fun little learning point, so you can kind of see, well, that's how the podcast was built. That's kind of cool. And if you're into Turo and maybe that's just your thing, maybe you like to see the interactions and see how things work out. Well, again, we're up at the 30-minute mark. Thank you very much for checking out the video. I do greatly appreciate it. I'll try and edit the front end a little bit, but to be honest with you, it is what it is. So again, if you want perfect video content, subscribe, because the more subscribers I get, the more motivation I get to buy equipment and to spend more time on it. Okay, so I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. And if you got any questions, leave it in the chat section there, just off to the side, off to that side, that side, that side, there. Leave it in the chat section. I'll try and add it to video content. I'll give you a little, heads up. Hey, it's on the next video type deal. Okay. Have a pleasant and enjoyable day. Oh, got to hit the button one more time. See ya.